An exciting Thursday evening, everybody. Welcome inside the U-Pick6 Tap House. A busy crowd just in front of us. And as always, we get a chance to talk about some Golden Knight athletics. Welcome in, everyone, to the second edition of the United podcast. Isaac Petcash, and we're starting off tonight joined by President Dr. Walter Iwanenko. Can't wait to have him on in just a few minutes. Doctor, this is a heck of an atmosphere, and happy to have you with us on this Thursday evening.
Thanks for having me. It's great to be here.
I was going to say, this atmosphere is exciting, but certainly not as great as the atmosphere from last night. We're going to talk about that in just a moment because, of course, both men's and women's basketball are through to the PSAC semifinals. So much happening tonight. Dr. Iwanenko will join us for the first part of this show. We also have founder and CEO of This Life Forever, Russell Fletcher, who's going to be joining us in just a few minutes. And we'll talk with women's wrestling, who are on their way to the NCWWC National Championship. So all that's coming up in just a few minutes here. So happy you're joining us on this Thursday evening. Stay tuned. We've got the top 5 plays of the week as well, our dish of the day, and a little bit of a highlight reel to close things out as well. But why listen to me when I can just give you a pretty cool graphic as to what we have in store on this Thursday evening? Again, Dr. Walter Iwanenko joining us in just a second to talk all things Gannon athletics. What's on tap coming up as well? We'll give you an insight as to what you can expect this weekend. Spoiler alert, it is going to be really busy and in a good way. So many Gannon athletic teams in postseason action and regular season action getting ready to gear up for the stretch run of the calendar campaign. Top 5 plays of the week. You're going to see a slam dunk. You're going to see a pin in men's wrestling, along with so many other really great plays as well, including a no-look pass. All of that coming up in just a couple of minutes as we start things off here on this Thursday evening in the United podcast. So nobody better to bring on episode 2 than Dr. Walter Iwanenko, who is, as always, dressed to the nines. He's got me beat in so many ways. I guess I got the Golden Knight logo. That's a good thing. But, let's start with last night, because you and I locked eyes once during the game last night, and the atmosphere is always sensational, but just smiles in everybody's faces. This is playoff time in March, and you've been around long enough to know, what is this time of year in March like as a president of a university whose athletic program is just so amazing in any sport that you pick?
I'll tell you what, best job ever. That's all I have to say.
Amen to that.
Best job ever. Look, it has its days, but how fun has this been? When I came to Erie, I heard all the stories about Gannon athletics, Gannon basketball. Coming off of last year and then going into this year, I'm living it, and I get to see what everybody's been telling me about these incredible stories. The Highmark Event Center was rocking. The players had high energy. The fans were into it. I mean, what a great! I was a little worried about not having a voice today because
I'm glad that you do.
Yeah, we were cheering so loudly.
It would have been understandable, though, of an excuse to be able to have that coming into tonight. And you mentioned this season, and the great thing about it is you have winter sports that are in the playoffs, but you also have crossover season. Even with the crazy weather we have outside, it was 60 yesterday, 20-something today, but you have those spring sports that are in full season as well. So this is really the full bloom of the athletic calendar, if you will. Really, it's November and March, right? And so we're getting to see everything in motion at different stages of the season.
Yeah, it's fantastic. And, the struggle is there's so many good things happening that you're trying to keep up with it. So we were at basketball games on Saturday, and I'm trying to keep up with wrestling scores. Right. And then I had the opportunity with women's softball. They had a fundraiser to go and hit with the team in the summertime. And now I'm getting to see them play, and they're engaged in games. So I'm trying to follow softball and baseball and seeing the students on campus and then watching them compete on the field is just an amazing experience.
And the great experience that we got to see last night, of course, every sport is important, but inside the Highmark Event Center last night, I had men's basketball, women's basketball on last week. And Cleve Wright's been around a long time. Easton Bozzoli's been here long enough to know just how incredible the atmosphere is. But I want to delve in a little bit to the Highmark Event Center because everyone knows the renovation project, the time it took, the energy and the passion it took to be able to get the building revitalized and renovated. But from your perspective and watching the entire process take place, right, from the announcement that there was going to be a multi-million-dollar renovation to this turning out into the building it is, has it exceeded your expectations? And what was that like for you as a president, getting to see that transformation take place?
I think it was really important that the history of, if you go back to when it was the Audi, and then the Hammermill Center, and now the Highmark Event Center, whatever you call it, it's home. and it's a community asset, and we want to make sure we keep it that way. We want people to come down. We want people to come downtown and visit great establishments like You Pick Six. We want people who are coming here for an experience, going to the Highmark Center. When I saw the history, I mean, do you know Johnny Cash played in that space?
Isn't that crazy?
I mean, how cool is that? I mean, Johnny Cash was here, and that facility hosted so many concerts, and we have alumni that are now bringing their grandkids to games. They were here as kids. So we have to make sure that we respect that history and honor it.
And I'm sure that was part of the decision, right? That, you could have easily have said, look, we're going to just tear down the building. We're going to build a new one. We have the funding to be able to do it. But you mentioned the history and the tradition. There are still fans that come to games today, many that came yesterday, that still call it the Mill, that still call it the Audi, that still call it the Hammer Mill, the extended term of the Mill. And it just seems like that's the one thing about Erie, from my experience, from your experience, that we have more than other cities and other college towns in America. You have fans of all ages, and fans of all ages who stick around with their teams, whether it's Gannon basketball greats or Gannon sports greats or amazing alumni. They just stick around. And so that heritage being respected, I'm sure, was a big part of the reason why you decided to renovate the building.
You know what I guess some of the feedback that made me most proud was when I had longtime Gannon basketball fans look at the new space and say, this is beautiful, and it still feels like the Audi, or it still feels like the Hammer. So, I'm thrilled that we were able to keep. We want the Highmark Event Center to be the toughest place to play in the PSAC, and I think it is, because the fans are so engaged and they're loud, they're proud, and they're not, as you know, you've been at games, they're not shy.
Floor, I feel it.
They're not shy.
They weren't shy last night either. And you feel bad for the officials who sometimes take part in this. But again, that's part of it. And it also feels, too, with the way that things are constructed and set up, the fans are right on top of you. I'm on the baseline. You're right down by the bench. And you don't feel, and this is a good thing, you don't feel like you have room to breathe if you're on the floor. And it's not like you're so far away from the fans like an NHL arena or an NBA arena. It feels like those fans are right on top of you. And you're right. They are loud.
And, I don't know if you noticed this, but I noticed something. First of all, we're really grateful to Cathedral Prep for the ability to play last season there. And, I mean, they hosted 3 regional championships between women's basketball, men's basketball, and volleyball. But did you notice Coach Cleve Wright did not stomp on the floor at prep? Like he's got that famous stomp.
Yeah. Oh, he brought it back last night.
He brought it back last night, but it didn't take him long to break it into the new Highmark Center. And I think that first stomp, the crowd was like, yes, there it is. There it is.
I think the best moment from Coach Wright last night is when Carissa hits that 3-pointer and Seton Hill calls a timeout, and he does. I don't know if it was like a jog step, like, Mamba dance move, and he just starts going crazy on the floor. The players in the locker room were actually trying to tell him to redo the dance afterwards, and he wouldn't do it. But that was a moment to behold. He's one of the guys that loves that building. You're one of the guys that love that building, and everyone loves the new Highmark Event Center. And we hope, fingers crossed, maybe if things go our way, that at least one, if not 2 Atlantic Regionals are going to be in that building as well. Of course, acrobatics and tumbling, competitive cheer and dance also taking part in that building as well. I mentioned these programs, and, we've talking about the winter sports, but it is very rare that you see multiple Dixon trophies come to a university in such a short period of time, that you see so many teams essentially having the conference championship as just the baseline expectation every season. What is the key, Ben, just from your perch, to have continued athletic success with this program in a world that, as we talked about before the show, is so volatile, with players, student athletes leaving and turnover year in, year out? There's got to be a recipe to success for having continued athletic success like Gannon does.
I think it goes to leadership and mission hires, mission fits. We are an institution that values our mission, values service, values our identity, and we make hires and we bring people on that are committed to that identity, which is important. I don't know if anybody ever saw the clip of Coach Matt Darling from volleyball in the Elite 8 volleyball championships, and he's in the hallway and he's teaching a class because he's also the chair of our English department, right? Like, That's the essence of what we do. So it comes down to leadership. It comes down to the commitment, and a place where students can come and not only excel on the field or the court or the pool, but in the classroom and in the community.
And it's great to see. And it's amazing for you, the fans and the alumni and everybody who's watching us. And by the way, however you may be watching on this Thursday evening through social media or through YouTube, thank you again for joining us. We're happy to have you all in talking with Dr. Walter Iwanenko, president of Gannon University. There are a lot of great things happening on campus in addition to athletics. And I know one of the things that, we've talked about and has been really in the forefront of conversation is the partnership with Ursuline College and the ability now for us to be able to help combine and grow stronger as a university. Take me through that process and how it will be positively impactful from the athletic side, too, and being able to bring some of those student athletes along for the ride, if you will.
Well, as we're looking at what's happening in higher education right now, we are, as a nation, we're facing a population decline. We see that a lot more in the Northeast. So we know that we're not going to be looking at the same number of graduating high school seniors that we've seen in the past. That's already started. So by expanding into different markets, the Ohio market, it allows us to deliver a Gannon education and scale correctly business-wise. So with the fantastic partnership with Ursuline, we don't need to have everything. We can scale. We can offer a great education. And if you would have asked me 5 years ago, where do you get a lot of your students? I would have automatically said Buffalo, Cleveland, Pittsburgh. But it's not true. Most of our students come from Pennsylvania. Ohio students, when they come over the border into Pennsylvania, they lose their Ohio State aid. So we never really get a lot of the students of Ohio. This allows us to offer the Gannon education in Ohio. And Ursuline's a fantastic institution, founded by the Ursuline sisters. The mission is there. They're wonderful, great staff, great students, and we are excited about the partnership.
And again, as you mentioned, a great opportunity in which not a lot of opportunities like that present themselves in this time in education where things are so volatile. And again, it just speaks to the consistency, not just of the athletic department, but of Gannon University as a whole. We're sitting here at a pretty cool establishment at UPick6 downtown. I know it's 20-something degrees outside, but it's not stopping people from coming. And the people who are just out in front of us are having a great time tonight. Make sure to stop down, by the way. We're live here at UPick6 on the corner of 4th and State. Such a big part of what Gannon is the relationship with local businesses. And I think it goes back to, I've lived here all my life. You've had an opportunity to be here and get ingratiated with the community. I think one of the things Erie has that maybe other places don't is that local tie and local connection, right? Take me through the importance of these partnerships with local businesses like we have here and just the connection that athletics has and the university has with downtown Erie that really helps out Gannon and it helps out the downtown area too.
Well, I'm from Buffalo. So when I first interviewed for the position here at Gannon as a vice president, someone actually asked me if I was concerned about the weather. I was like,
get out of town with that.
I was like, did you read my resume?
Really quickly, by the way, I can't believe this. We're actually ahead of everyone else, Buffalo and Syracuse, for the number one snowiest city by like a tenth of an inch. It's crazy. Yes. So you actually, amazingly, you grew from Buffalo, and yet you picked a city worse in winter weather to come to. Anyway, I digress.
No, it's I love it, and because the people here are gritty, they're tough, right? And it's a lot like Buffalo. People ask me all the time, well, how do you like Erie? I love Erie. I love Erie. I can be in my office at Gannon. I could walk to the Warner for a show. I could walk to the restaurants. I could come here, for a little business meeting after work, so to speak. Right? This is a great location. We are only as strong as our community. The community is only as strong as we are. So it's really important that our students and the families, when they come to Gannon and they're here in Erie, that they come to establishments like this and they support the economy. Even better yet, what we want is our graduates of Gannon to stay in Erie and build business and contribute to the ecosystem. And that's what we're working on. Businesses like this help us do that.
And there are so many downtown. It's not just UPick6. There are a million others as well. You walk down State Street and you pick your poison, right? Pick exactly where you want to go. I'm sure you get a chance to talk to a lot of alumni and a lot of fans as well, whether it's at games or whether it's with business meetings as well. I'm just curious some of the things that they tell you as to how the community can continue to get better, continue to persevere through what may be considered tough times around here, and just what you've been able to do to incorporate that into the Gannon mission?
Well, first of all, helping those in need around the community is extremely important, and we're committed to getting our students and our staff out in the community to help. One example is, we had one of our residents who had an older couple that needed their front stairs repaired. We had members of our men's wrestling team actually go there and fix their stairs so they didn't get the code violation. There's a small example of how our students are contributing to the community, and we don't need big stories about it. They just do it, and they're not looking for any type of recognition. But when we also look at investment in the city itself and the region, Gannon has invested in our West Bay, which is our local community organization that represents the neighborhood that we live and work in, which is important. We contribute to the Regional Science Consortium out of the Tom Ridge Center. We have our Erie Technology Incubator at 900 State Street that's generating new businesses and helping small businesses thrive and grow. So there's service, there's economics, there's all ways that we contribute. And I also want to say that people don't realize, we're one of the larger employers. When you add up all of our full-time, part-time employees, we have about 900. Yeah. And when you look at the economic impact, the last economic impact study that we looked at, just our employees have an impact of about $150 million a year on the local economy. Wow. That's huge.
Yeah, it is. And again, you talk about university collaborating with downtown. Each needs each other, and that relationship has been pretty clear and pretty crystal. We're going to bring on Russell Fletcher in just a moment, but Dr. I, before we bring him on, in the time that we have left with just the two of us, as we mentioned in the peak season, what would be your message to the athletes, whether or not they're in their playoff season, whether or not they're in their regular season, your message to the student athletes as they get ready to continue their competition?
My message to the students is always this: stay focused. Remember that you're a student athlete,
right?
So we want to make sure that we're getting the academic piece done. But most importantly, enjoy it. Enjoy each other, and make sure that you keep your priorities in check. And I think that's really important as they try to finish up the year, because what we want is we want really good athletes. We want really good computer science majors and really good biology majors, but we want great people. So keep the priorities in line.
Our priorities are going to be watching all these events and making sure that we have the times right for the rest of the weekend. Let's take you through, by the way, what's on tap as we get ready to bring in Russell Fletcher, the CEO and founder of This Life Forever. This is what's on tap coming up this weekend. Of course, we talked about the men's and women's basketball PSAC semifinals. Those are going to be happening on Saturday and Sunday if both of our teams are able to come away with victories, and that will be a time and space to be determined. Then as we move into Friday and Saturday, this is the other thing that we've been talking about when it comes to women's wrestling. Speaking of postseason, they're heading to Coralville, Iowa for the NCWWC Women's Wrestling Championships. Erin Vandiver and her team heading west for a great opportunity to potentially get some medals home in their pocket. They had a wonderful regional as well. Meanwhile, tomorrow, Acrobatics and Tumbling continues their Western road trip. They're heading to Oregon for a matchup with the Ducks. That one takes place at 9 o'clock tomorrow. You can watch that live action right here at UPick6 Tap House. And oh, by the way, you can watch all of our away events for Gannon University Athletics here at the UPick6 Tap House. Women's lacrosse taking on Belmont Abbey Saturday at noon, and all the way from tomorrow through Monday, baseball and softball are down south. Lucky them. The weather a little bit better there than it is right here right now. They're at the Russ Matt Invitational for baseball, and the space games for softball, they are not on Mars. They are still on planet Earth. I just wanted to make that distinction so that way we could all know that they have not time traveled or anything like that. Very pleased to bring on with us Russell Fletcher. He is the founder and CEO of This Life Forever, also the CEO and founder of Mishka Premium Vodka. But Russell, we wanted to bring you on because, first of all, we appreciate you being here. And for you, I'm sure your experience in Erie has certainly been a good one. And this crowd and the people here, man, what an atmosphere.
Oh man, it's excellent. One of my favorite places to visit, the Tap House. Anytime that I stop into Erie, actually, it's one of the places that I always make sure that I always visit. And obviously, being here with you guys, so I'm appreciative of you actually bringing us on, and having a conversation. Doc, I appreciate you allowing me to share the stage with you, and Isaac, you're doing a great job. So it's a pleasure to be here with you guys.
Hey, appreciate it, man. I'm in the middle of two greats right now, so just a pleasure to be here. Russell, you've had an opportunity throughout your career and the opportunities that you founded to work with a lot of student athletes and athletes that have graduated and gone on to bigger and brighter things. Just take me through, from your perspective, what a student athlete can do in their collegiate career to get ready for the professional world. We hear all of the notion, everyone talks about how you have to prepare. But what is that key, and what can student athletes learn as they move through their collegiate career to aspire to be what they want to be, just like you are currently right now?
I mean, I think that the biggest thing is, as Doc had hinted to, is to make sure that you understand that you're a student first, and then, an athlete afterwards, because there's no promising, of any type of position afterwards in sports. Even though sports gives way to a whole bunch of different positions when you start really looking at the actual, what actually takes place in order to be able to actually put on a sporting event, especially at a major level. But I think that while you're a student, I think that the best thing and the biggest thing that you can focus on is stay focused on building relationships, making sure that you're keying in on those relationships, and making sure that you're building quality relationships in order to be able to have that afterlife. And I think that that's the most important aspect of it. Whether you're a student athlete or even whether you're just a student just going through with it, build the relationships that will actually guide you to be able to make sure you can reach out to someone, because the world gets a little cold if you don't have anyone to reach out to, even colder than Erie.
and that's hard. That's hard to do. Again, we were saying snowiest city in America. We totally get it. The two of you know the importance of relationships, and whether you're a student or a student athlete, as both of you were as students, the opportunity to build those relationships is critical. But I'm also sure too that in talking to athletes, one of the things that they tell me, and I'm sure they tell Dr. Iwanenko, is, how do I manage my time well? How do I compartmentalize the student part, the athlete part, the other work and outside part? How do you keep all of that organized? And what was your experience like in all of the things that you had in your young career, and even now in all the things that you manage, to be able to manage that well as a young adult getting ready for the real world, per se?
I think the biggest thing is to focus on what you'd like to be. Because if you can build on that focus, one thing that I've run into with a lot of athletes who found success, as students, and then all the way up into the NBA or into the MLB or NFL, I think that, building a strong team of people around you also, I think that that's super duper key. And I mean, that's the way it works even in the real world. So making sure that you're focused on what your goals are for the afterlife of being even a student, and also, a student athlete. I think that it's very important to continue to focus on that end goal, but also be able to build a good group around you in order to be able to count on them. And when you start speaking about compartmentalizing, your life and being able to enjoy different things, I think that you kind of have to put everything into a box and give yourself a little bit of time for this, a little bit of time for that, in order to be able to not miss the world that you're growing in, but also at the same time stay focused on exactly what your goals are, because too much of one thing will lead to a deficiency in another thing, and that's just the way life is. I'm a person who I kind of split my sleep schedule up, so therefore, as Doc knows, I had told him before, I sleep 6 hours or 4 hours on, and then take a little nap and another 4 hours, so I get a total of about 6 to 7 hours of sleep every single day. But at the end of the day, I know that there's things that I have to be able to make sure that I prioritize in order to be able to make sure that my week goes right, my month goes right. And as a business owner, you're building it out on the quarterly side of it, such as Doc, same situation. We have to be able to make sure we have the strong quarters and catch the cycles that we need to be able to catch in order to be able to have the success that what our end focus is. So those things are really just important. I mean, that I push that from whether I'm speaking from a collegiate level all the way back down to even elementary school with some of the speakings that I do.
I'll tell you what, that sleep schedule, it's like a new parent sleep schedule their entire life. I'm feeling that right now, so I can attest. I understand. But it's not a bad way to go. And Dr. For the students here, with everything that they're involved in. And we mentioned this a little bit, is the fact that so many student athletes are just that. They're students, they're athletes, but they also have so much community engagement as well. And one of the things Gannon really does well with their student athletes.
Yeah, absolutely, and it's maintaining that balance. One of the warnings that I give students sometimes is you're going to come to the university, and we want you to be engaged, right? We want you to take advantage of the student experience, but we also want you to say no to some things, right? Because you're like in a candy store. I want this, and I want this, and I want that. But then you fill up your schedule, and you can't get your work done. So as Russell said, you got to kind of you got to maintain the balance. And, I can tell you firsthand in getting to know Russell as an entrepreneur and a businessman, he is constantly thinking about what's got to be done next. But at the same time, he's got a family, right? And,
Yes.
and so you're trying to balance being successful in the business world, but also being a good husband and dad and everything else, right?
Right. Yeah, that work-life balance. I mean, again, that's the balance of life. And I think that even you as a young parent,
Yes,
right? I developed my sleep schedule based on my 6-year-old. He's now 6, but when he was born, I realized, hey, look, I have to do this in the morning from this time to this time. And I still keep that same schedule to where I know I might get an afternoon nap because I know I need to power throughout the evening in order to be able to keep up with the things that are going on. And now with us being in 15 states and growing, it's a West Coast thing. It's a, something from out of the country. There's multiple things that we have to pay attention to. So you got to make sure that you're always providing your best, because if not, like Doc said, something's going to slip. And, that's where the failure comes in at.
And the wonderful thing about being able to plan and compartmentalize and have that schedule is, as a student athlete, is, of course, we talk about it as an athletics podcast with alumni and people who are watching now. They do that almost better than anything. They have a regiment, they have a schedule, and they're able to be able to do that. And it sets them up for success so early and often in their career. Russell, I think I'd be remiss if we didn't touch on the impact of This Life Forever and how it's been able to grow. I know for you, a passion project and an ability for you to be able to expand your word across the community. Take us through what that has been like for you and kind of a little bit behind This Life Forever.
Yeah, so This Life Forever is the parent company for Mishka Premium Vodka. I've always been advocate of the community. Hence, when we came here to Erie roughly almost 3 years ago, I saw what a lot of people might miss, right? I saw an opportunity. I saw a community that was bound together by a bunch of things that are just great. I mean, you're in proximity of so many things. I mean, it's a beautiful city as the walkthrough. Second most notable sunrise in the world, right after Japan. And then obviously, bringing it forward and bringing the business and raising the business a little bit more, the bar of the business a little bit more, and then connecting with Dr. I and Gannon and GDIC and being able to see what the community really looked like. And then that led to Erie events. So for me, growing This Life Forever as a company and then taking our nonprofit in our partnership with Beyond the Hardwood, which I share with Jermaine Jones, former Cavs, former Sixers player, it's allowed me to be able to kind of just spread my wings a little bit more, because now I'm not just looked at as the guy who's just the business guy. Now I'm able to really be able to engage in the community, but I'm able to also be able to figure out how to bring my for-profit partners into my nonprofit world. So in Philadelphia, we've got a partnership with the Marriott. Here, we just opened up a scholarship fund for entrepreneurs with Gannon University for the next 5 years. We're doing things with Erie events. It's kind of just like I said, it's allowed me to be able to use the for-profit to be able to get in the door, to be able to make sure, obviously, that the bills are paid, but also at the same time, it allows me to be able to spread my wings with nonprofits like GDIC, be able to do work as far as with Gannon and be able to foster the right things that, are truly in my heart, and be able to do that across the Commonwealth and hopefully nationally sooner than later.
And Dr. I, those relationships, as we talked about, whether it be with you, Pick Six, or Mr. Fletcher, so critical and important to be able to broaden Gannon's horizons.
They're critical because it gives our students opportunities, but there's also modeling for our students. Like, hey, this is a lot of work. This is like, everybody wants what you have, but they don't always want to put the work in to get what you have, right? And so it gives our students the ability to make these connections so that they can see what it takes. And, I will tell you, employers love hiring student athletes. Why? They know how to play on a team. They know they got to set goals. They know it takes a lot of hard work. And so employers look for those attributes, and these important relationships help make the links so the students can build up their network and the relationships, as Russell was talking about earlier.
Russell, last question I have for you before we let you and Dr. I go. One of the big important parts of being an entrepreneur, besides the scheduling, besides the regiment, is leadership. And I know that that's something as a student athlete you learn really from the first day that you step foot on a court or on a field or in the pool. How important is that, though, from somebody who has been able to have success in the entrepreneurship field, and just your message to student athletes about how you can be a leader and the key to that?
Hey, look, the governor appointed me to the first ever board for Distilled Spirits promotion. And there was a conversation that was had, and it was kind of thrown out, hey, who would like to? And I raised my hand because I realized, and I try to teach younger individuals that opportunities, they're not just given and they don't come plentiful. So you better take advantage of those opportunities. And that, I feel like, is what builds a leader. And being a leader, I think the best part for me about being a leader is knowing when I should allow myself to step back and allow someone else to be able to lead so that we can be able to get safely to where we actually need to be. So it's about that positioning, but it's about wanting that. Like I'm 47 years old and I've still got a burning desire that I don't feel like it's going to go anywhere else, So I think that the best part of being a student athlete and understanding that team structure, you understand leadership, but we all lead in specific ways. And, it's about, right, play your position, right? PYP. Yeah. So at some point you got to know when, when your position and when that time is there. And I think that that's just really the best part of leadership, knowing exactly when you're supposed to lead, knowing when you're supposed to be supportive of whoever's leading at that time, and allow people to be able to kind of shine in the spots where they're supposed to shine in. I think that that's the biggest part, or the biggest portion that I could give as far as with the direction to leadership to students.
Wonderful words of wisdom from Russell Fletcher, the founder and the CEO of This Life Forever, a great entrepreneurial spirit to my right. It has been a pleasure talking with you, sir.
Absolutely.
I would say enjoy the weather outside, but maybe you want to stay in here and get a bite to eat.
Yeah, I'm going to hang out for a bit.
And Dr. Iwanenko, thank you as always for taking some time. This has been a lot of fun to have these two great minds in between me and having a chance to talk to them all. All right, we're going to move on here in our podcast as we roll along here on the United Podcast, broadcasting live, as always, from the U-Pick 6 Tap House downtown. Hey, by the way, stay tuned. Coming up in a few minutes, we'll have our dish of the day. And it's $2 off, by the way, our dish of the day tonight from 6 until 10 p.m. So stop in. We'll show you what that's going to be in just a few minutes. We talked about the big matchups coming up this weekend, and in case you missed it, here is the two semifinal matchups in the PSAC. Gannon is the only school on both the men's and the women's side to have their two teams advance. And in the women's basketball calendar and in the basketball bracket, it is Gannon and Kutztown at 1 o'clock at Edinburgh University in the semifinal. You can get your tickets at psacsports.com. We also have a link to it on our website. Meanwhile, on the men's side, Gannon gets to make the trek to West Virginia. Country roads take me home, maybe home to a PSAC championship as the Golden Knights take on the Millersville Marauders. That game, 1 o'clock on Saturday at Shepherd. Again, tickets at the same link, and we will have information on our website as well. Before we get there, though, let's go ahead and show you how those two games went down, because my goodness, were they really big games. Of course, Gannon women's basketball taking down Seton Hill last night 60-52, the third time the Golden Knights have beaten the Seton Hill Griffins this season. What a game from Kate Ratliff, a double-double, 21 points and 12 boards in the victory. Carissa Dunham hit a couple of clutch three-pointers, and Bree Claxon with some big jumpers down the stretch as Cleve Wright's team erased a deficit to come away with that 60-52 victory, and in the process head in to the PSAC semifinals. Here's some of the sounds after the game from Carissa Dunham, Kate Ratliff, and Coach Cleve Wright.
The biggest piece, now we're in playoffs, it was one and done, so we just want to come out there with a lot of energy and intensity, make sure that we took care of it on the defensive end. It definitely felt good, especially with the crowd. we've had a lot of good supporters, especially down the stretch. That's been really nice in our new gym too, so it was awesome. We just knew we had to get our defense rolling, and getting onto that tie, it made us feel really good coming into halftime knowing, hey, we got this. You can't win the first game in the first half. So we knew coming in the second half that we got this.
Carissa Dunham and Kate Ratliff, two big performances in the win on Wednesday in the Golden Knights, as we talked about. Now moving on, they don't have to travel very far. They just go 20 miles down south to Edinburgh for the semifinals, and if they win on Saturday, the PSAC championship game would be on Sunday. Gannon with an opportunity to get there on Saturday. Meanwhile, on the men's side, the Golden Knights, this game was not as close, taking down IUP 88-58, tripling up the Crimson Hawks by a 30-point margin. This was a team effort all around. Tasman Goodrick led the team in points. He, like Kate Ratliff, also with a double-double, 19 points and 12 rebounds for the Aussie. He was dominant. Pace Prosser with a couple of nice shots as well. Ernest Shelton collected a couple of big three-pointers in the game. And defense was really the story. 21 turnovers forced on the Crimson Hawks, thanks to that relentless Easton Bizzoli coach defense. And by the way, while we're talking about it, congratulations to Coach Easton Bizzoli, who won a basketball game last night, but that same morning welcomed his second child into the world with his wife, Katrina. Congratulations to Easton and the Bizzoli family on the birth of their child. So, men's basketball, they're moving on to play Millersville in the semifinals. Here's a listen to the postgame afterwards from Tasman Goodrick and Ernest Shelton, as well as Coach Bizzoli on the defensive performance from last night.
I mean, from the beginning of the season, we had a chip on our shoulder because, we was preseason ranked number 3. So, I mean, we just come into every game with a chip on our shoulder because of that.
It makes my job a lot easier when we've got the back guards talking to me, so that makes it really easy for me. But, yeah, I just try to make them throw the hard passes over the top and double whenever we can. But, yeah, we practice it a lot. We practice a lot in practice, so we're just trying to come out and do it every time. We
weren't great offensively. I thought we were really good. We weren't great. But when you guard like that, it takes care of a lot of things. It just does. It puts you in a position where no matter what it looks like offensively, you're in a position to win. And when the shots are really falling, and tonight they were falling, not really falling, you got a chance to blow somebody out.
88-58, no contest in the game last night. So Gannon now takes on Millersville. They'll play that game at Shepherd. It's about a 5-hour drive away. So if you're going to the women's basketball game in Edinburgh, of course, show up, show out, pack their field house, make it a Gannon home atmosphere. But if you want to watch the men's basketball action as well, come on right here to the UPick6 Tap House. We'll be streaming this and every other Gannon away event live. Again, any Gannon event you want that's away from home, right here at the UPick6 Tap House. So make sure to join us for that as well. As we continue along here on the United Podcast, brought to you by UPick6, broadcasting live every Thursday from 6 to 7 p.m. Thankful for you on this Thursday evening, Golden Knight Nation. Dr. Walter Iwanenko, Russell Fletcher joined us just a few minutes ago. And joining us now as they head to the NCWWC National Championships is women's wrestling. Erin Vandiver's squad had a tremendous regional performance last week. They sent 9 to the national competition. They had 5 individual regional champions in the process. And, oh, by the way, not to mention, they took home their first ever regional team title. So all that to be said, in addition to knowing that next year they'll be heading to NCAA championships as women's wrestling is set to become a sanctioned sport. Championship sport, that is, in the NCAA. Here's my interview from earlier this week with head coach Erin Vandiver and one of their standout performers at 138 pounds. Wrestling is getting set to head off to Iowa for the NCWWC National Championships. Lily Ufali and head coach Erin Vandiver joining us here on the United Podcast as we're getting ready to make the trip. Luckily, the weather not going to be a factor at all. At least we don't think. There's always a snowstorm lingering around in Pennsylvania. Coach, let's start with you. What a regional you had. You win the team championship, your first ever, and it just seemed like there was a lot of consistency that was there. And I'm sure for you, an exciting opportunity to look back and think of how well your team fared.
Absolutely. And that's a big word, Isaac, consistency. And that's what this team has put forth throughout the year to gain that accomplishment. That was our goal at the beginning of the season, to have 15 healthy going into that event and win the team title.
You know, it's funny because teams always have those goals, right? And they always will say outwardly that those goals are what they aim to accomplish, Lily. But there was seemingly truly that belief that you could get upwards of 8, 9 as you have now going to nationals to that point. What did it take to be able to get there and to get to that point from the beginning of the season? Because obviously the belief is there, but it's different putting it on the mats and executing.
I feel like if you believe in yourself is never going to be enough. You need a belief system behind you, people who believe in you, whether that's coaching staff, whether that's the athletic training department, whether it's your teammates or your family, friends, whoever it could be. If you don't have a belief system behind you that will support your beliefs and that you can believe in yourself, you probably won't be able to accomplish that much. But I feel like this year, especially with how we were rolling into preseason and then the beginning of the season, and that spark of belief in each other never went away. It just became a big fire, and now we're at a point where it's like maybe a volcano eruption at nationals, and I feel like we're on the right track and we can get it done. We believe in each other.
We're 90 seconds into this interview, and I already want Lily as my co-host for the next podcast. You've used bonfire, you used volcano. I love the references. The success of this team has been really apparent in the last few years and since you started as a program. And I know, Coach, it takes a while to build up to this point, but I would say even the success you've had as rapidly as you've been able to have it has been pretty impressive. When you had the opportunity to take the reins of this program, are you seeing what you hoped would materialize now here in 2025, where you are regional champions and you have this many athletes in the final stage of competition?
Absolutely. I am seeing it, and like Lily said, it's because these girls are stepping in the room and believing in themselves. And that's just, we've given them that opportunity. They support each other. They understand that. That's their fuel, you know? And so we're giving them the opportunities. They're stepping up, but it's their belief in each other and themselves that they're stepping in this room ready to work, ready to strive for more, ready to be challenged. And it's just really unique to see it unfold.
How do you cultivate that belief? Because when you get to this point, you have a successful program, you bring new wrestlers in, they just adapt to what you're used to. But to be able to cultivate something like that sort of belief, what does it take as a head coach to be able to get to that point where you have a locker room that believes?
We're trying to open minds and hearts to always more, look for more, reach for more, believe in more. Again, just opening boxes, opening ceilings, opening doors. And that's what this sport is doing. That's what Gannon University is doing for their student athletes and for this team. Just giving them a chance to step on that line and see what they have and what they're made of and realize, hey, there's a lot there going on that I didn't even realize. So it's unlocking some abilities in themselves, which is really cool to see. And again, just behind their hard work ethic, they're pushing each other daily to say, hey, we're not going to be, mediocre. We're not going to be okay with, just being average. We're striving for more. So they're pushing each other to do that, and they're really unlocking a lot of potential.
Let's talk about what we call March Madness. Or at least that was coined by one of my former high school coaches, and what you have coming up at Nationals. And Lily, I'll start with you. You're one of 9 that are going to be competing at the NCWWC National Championships coming up this weekend. What's the excitement just overall about something like that? Obviously, you want to get down to business and you want to win. But I'm sure as a team and as athletes, as you talk to each other, there's got to be a lot of excitement just around being able to go and taking as many wrestlers as you have.
I can say that every time we talk, I always say I remember. And it's because I feel like my experiences build upon my memories and my experiences here at Gannon. So I remember in freshman year, I think it was 9 of us who qualified for nationals. And it was a very, very first experience for me. I was one of the freshmen who qualified, and I remember I was scared, but I was excited at the same time. And I was able to accomplish that last year too. Mm-hmm. And this year I'm a 3-time national qualifier, but this time we're going as regional champ as a team. And I feel like I was able to help the freshmen not only physically and wrestling wise, but mentally too. I remember a couple of them came up to me before regionals and we were like, oh my God, I don't know what to do because I'm scared. What if I don't qualify? And I remember telling them that you're a freshman. You don't need to prove anything to anyone. The only thing you have to prove to yourself is that you can do it. Mm-hmm. And I remember once again that a lot of people were telling me that when I was a freshman. So I feel like that helped us become regional champions because we were there for each other. We were believing in each other. And I remember once again, we were crying our eyes out when we found out that we became regional champs as a team. 5 individual regional champs. So going into nationals, I feel like it's a treasure. And I want to cherish this as much as I can, because this is different from the last 2 years. Because I feel like this year our team is a family, and it's a family I've never experienced before.
I have to imagine this weekend is like a blur for the student athlete, for the competitor. I mean, do you? I know you remember moments from the last 2 national competitions, but is it hard to really encapsulate what that weekend is? Because I'm sure it just goes by so fast.
It goes by so slow before we get there.
Okay, so I was going to say, so I'm wrong in the beginning.
But it goes by so fast, because after you weigh in, you do the warm-ups, and then you're on the mat already. And then if it doesn't go the way that you want it to go, or it does, you're on to day 2. And another weigh in, another warm-up, and then you're on to the All-American parade, and then it's done, and your season is over. So freshman year, it is definitely a blur, but with good memories that I can mostly remember. Last year is definitely a big blur. I don't really remember anything, so I'm hoping that this year is going to be a good blur too.
Yeah, that's not a bad thing. Again, when things go quick, that's a good thing. And planes are great too for the whole travel component instead of just driving down the whole way. So NCWWC this year, but I think we'd be remiss if we didn't talk about NCAA's next year, because the big news, really maybe the biggest news that we've had of 2025, was that women's wrestling is going to become a championship sport in 2026, and it's of course well-deserved. It's been a long time coming. And Coach, for you, I'm sure this is, and for you and all your athletes, a great opportunity to showcase how important this sport is. Just your thoughts, because I don't think I've ever gotten a chance to talk to you about what this means to have this become a championship sanctioned sport.
Yeah, it's such a profound statement on so many levels. For little girls that are 5 and wanting to choose a sport or getting introduced to wrestling, and now have, the concrete in front of them, just saying this support system that we believe in you, make those dreams come true. To everything from education and higher education and getting scholarships and funding and sponsorship, and these girls having a platform, to compete against other females on a team and against the nation's best is just incredible. It's really come full circle for me, and it's amazing to see. I get very emotional on it to see the growth again, one of the fastest growing sports in the U.S., so it is time, and the sanctioning of high schools, and again, just giving these girls a room to walk into, a mat to step on, to believe in themselves and make all things possible is just incredible. It's very unique. We're excited. But it's time, to put that seal of approval, that validation, legitimacy behind it, to have these girls be, NCAA national champs.
And I think both of you, and I'm sure the whole team, feels the importance of wrestling, not just to Gannon, but to this area and Pennsylvania as a whole. Because we were talking before we started this interview that, Coach, this area in particular, Erie, Gannon, what's home for us, this is a big wrestling community, and now we get a chance to add to it with women's wrestling.
Yeah, absolutely. It's so rich, in the tradition, in the sport of wrestling, and it's incredible to just now see the growth in the high schools and the colleges, and giving these, women an opportunity to go and get degrees and get their, education paid for, and get scholarship and be on a women's team for that teamwork and everything, like you said, just the Erie area, the Pennsylvania area, but it's also a global sport, and it's very inclusive, which is awesome also.
Yeah, snow doesn't bother wrestlers. That is for sure. Winter doesn't bother wrestlers around here. And Lily, for you, in the career that you've had at GU and the success that you've had, just what message would you give younger female wrestlers who are trying to get to the pinnacle of what they want? Because there's more opportunity now, sure, as well, but I'm sure they look up to people like you to give them those words of encouragement. What would you tell your 5 or 6-year-old self if you had that chance now to, for reasons for success, ways to be able to get to where you are?
Well, what did I do when I was 5? I was doing.
I ask you. You can't remember all of NCAA championships from the last 2 years, but I ask you to remember, 15, 16 years ago. But take me through maybe what you would say to someone now that's in your, wants to be in your shoes.
It's a hard question. I think I can use myself as an example, because I'm not from here. I had to go through a very, very hard route to be able to come here, to come to Gannon, to come to the United States by itself. And I started this kind of dreaming when I was 16, 15, that, oh my God, United States, the American girls are like amazing. Kennedy Blades, coaches, former athlete, Amia Laura, I wrestled them all before. And once I got that into my head, I never really imagined that it's going to become like a reality. So I think the message that I can tell everyone is never stop believing in your dreams, because nothing is impossible. Everything can come true. Everything happens for a reason. And if you fight for it, it will become a reality. And I feel like that's what I've been doing my whole life, working hard, working for myself, and making myself and the people around me proud. And I feel like I'm on the right track. Of course, I'm still trying to accomplish more things throughout my career, whether that was before, right now, or after, is that I always want to make people proud, and I want to make my younger self proud.
Wonderful thing about every athlete, they all have really amazing stories, and Lily's is certainly one of those that stand out. Let's just talk about what your message, Coach, as we wrap this interview up, would be to your team. You're going to give a lot of speeches, I'm sure, between now and when they first hit the mats coming up this weekend. What would that final message be as they get ready for competition in Iowa coming up this weekend?
Just step on the mat and do what they've always done. Every day they step in the room, and they believe in themselves, and they work hard, and they push it, and they get into sticky situations, and they find a way out. There's a lot of resiliency there. There's a lot of grit, and they have a lot of skill and a lot of talent. So just trusting in that, trusting in themselves, trusting in their training, trusting in their team, their coaches, the system they brought into it, trusting in Gannon that we've provided everything we need to give them the best opportunity. And I think they believe in that. They'll do incredible things.
Our special thanks to Erin Vandiver and Lily for being a part of our podcast tonight. And again, best of luck to the women's wrestling team as tomorrow and Saturday they compete in Coralville, Iowa for the NCWWC Women's Wrestling National Championships. The last time that'll be a thing, because next year it's NCAAs, and we cannot wait for that. All right, we got Dish of the Day coming up in a couple of minutes. Before we get to that, though, it's time for the debut of our top 5 plays of the week. All right, our top 5 plays of the week on this United podcast. These are the top 5 plays that we captured with our cameras from the previous week from our podcast. It's basketball and it's wrestling that give us our top 5 plays, and let's count them down. Starting at number 5, men's basketball versus Seton Hall from last night. How about this play? The no-look pass from Pace Prosser to Tasman Goodrick. One hand through 2 defenders, and the big man slamming it down. Taz with 19 points and 12 boards as Gannon. Men's basketball dominating, but it was a large part thanks to the defense. Take a look at our number 4 play. Justin DeBuck forcing it loose and then getting the bucket to boot. This is what Easton Bozzoli's squad's all about, folks. Take a look one more time. DeBuck, the nice little right hand into the midsection, forcing it away, and then the easy bucket to boot. Gannon right now on their way to Shepherd for the Final Four. Women's basketball at number 3, Kate Ratliff. Nice little spinorama while getting hacked and whacked. It doesn't matter for Kate. This is what she's done all season long. And Kate Ratliff with just an incredible play. Little spinorama move, left-hand finish. Not an issue. And Kate Ratliff, a big part of the reason why the Golden Knights got the win last night. She was 21 and 12 in points category. At number 2, men's wrestling regional from last week. 3rd period and a tie score. Pat Jackson, a huge takedown. Just what you saw a moment ago. This takedown in the 3rd period wins him a regional championship as he is able to take home 1st place in Fairmont, West Virginia. But at number 1, it's this man, Dorian Crosby, taking on the top seed, Isaiah Vance. And Isaiah Vance, who was great all season long for UPJ, not against Mr. Crosby, gets the pin, secures the victory, and that is exactly how he is taking home a regional championship. Crosby and Jackson, the 2 individual regional champs on this on last weekend's regional championship, and the point for good measure. Good for Dorian, and congratulations to him and the Golden Knights. They'll be at national championships next week. Well, we have a special guest. Mitch is back with us, so you know what that means. It's time for our dish of the day. That jingle, love it very much. All right, Mitch is back for our second dish of the day. Last week, it was the hot honey pizza, but this week, Mitch, we have one of the greatest appetizers I think we have ever had an opportunity to taste and that any restaurant has ever seen. Hold it up for us. It is the dish of the day, and the dish of the day is the homemade jumbo stout pretzel. This is some of the video of what you're seeing. It looks like on pictures. This is what it looks like to the real audience. Hold that thing up. You got the cheese coming down. This is for good effect, too. The cheese, the beer cheese, the nacho cheese, it looks like, coming down as well. This is what you expect the pretzel to look like, my friend.
Absolutely. You know, there's a little, like, the things in life are always chocolate and cheese, the great things. And you know what goes both good with those? Pretzels.
We were talking earlier in the week about the best dipping sauce for pretzels. So while we're here, I want you to debate this. Best dipping sauce for pretzel. What do you think?
I'm always a beer cheese fan.
Okay.
If you can put those together, it's just a great combination. So beer cheese, you could go with the regular nacho cheese. Is a good one. You could even melt up some chocolate. I'll dip pretzels into that. And, you know, you got hot chocolate pretzels, or there you go.
See, you know, I actually am going to go off the beaten path here. Go ahead and feel free to dig in. Dig in and eat here. Mitch is going to go ahead and taste test here. My favorite would be hot fudge. If you've got a good hot fudge that you can put in your pretzel, that by far is by far and away the best for me. But I'm a beer cheese guy as well. Love the beer cheese. Think it's delicious. That's a total 100%er for me. It just looks delicious. I have to be the one to talk through this, so Mitch gets an opportunity here. We got a fan as well in the background. Yeah. Look at that. It's a packed place here tonight at UPick6 Tap House. By the way, as Mitch is taking part in this pretzel, we want to let you know, in case we didn't give you a chance or you missed out earlier in the podcast, if you come to the UPick6 Tap House right now, between now and 10 o'clock, this house-made jumbo stout pretzel is $2 off. So you can get a nice discount on your appetizer, stay for a nice meal as well, and really enjoy the vibe here on this Thursday. What do you think? What do you think?
Delicious. The beer cheese is perfect, nice and warm. They just brought it out, so it's awesome.
It was perfect timing. You know, we always worry at the end. It's like, okay, are we gonna have to wait a little bit? No, this restaurant staff, they know exactly when to bring it out. It's perfect. They got it all good for us. And so, two great dishes from last week, from pizza to this week with pretzel. I don't know how we can top it, but we're certainly going to next week, because our dish of the day will return on the United podcast.
And hopefully me too, because this is becoming a great thing.
Yeah, listen, this is a weekly thing. You know, Mitch asked me at the beginning of the day today, am I still in? You are the most important part of the show, my friend.
I don't know about that. Have you seen the people before me? I don't think so.
I don't know. I feel like taste testing for food is more important than almost anything. Do you know that there are some taste testers around the world that get paid like 6 figures or 7 figures just to go around tasting food?
I was going to say that would be my dream.
Okay, so I don't know about you. So there's this thing called the Michelin Guide, and again, I'm not a huge foodie, but you know, I'm sure many of you know what it is, where they give out Michelin stars to restaurants, right? Mm-hmm. Think about being one of those taste testers in the Michelin company that have the great responsibility of having to go out and taste test different great restaurant food options. I don't even know. I don't even know what I'm
considered lucky. I would kill for that job.
I was going to say, I don't really care what I would get paid. That would be an amazing side gig as well. But I digress. That's a different story for a different day. Today, though, we want to thank all of you for being a part of our United podcast, however you may be watching around the world, or whether you're an alumni, whether you're a current student athlete, whether you're a coach or just a fan of Gannon Athletics. We are so grateful for all of you, and we thank you for being a part of our podcast the last 2 weeks. Great thing about this, we get to be back just next week, Thursday, March 13th, 2025. We're back at the UPick6 Tap House for the next edition of the United Podcast. We'll have our top 5 plays of the week again, dish of the day, more live guests to come. We have a couple confirmed already. We'll bring you some more as soon as we confirm with those people, with our student athletes and our coaches, but we can't wait for next week's episode as well, and what will be a continuation of the playoff season, Mitch, because I feel like all of March, man, we are just crazy busy in a good way with playoff action.
Always love it.
All right, this has been the United Podcast. From everyone, from Dr. Iwanenko joining us tonight, from Russell Fletcher, from Mitch, and myself, Isaac Petcash, saying so long. We leave you with the week that was on week 2 of the United Podcast. See you back here next week, everybody, at 6 o'clock. Going to be a fun one.